Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on omni-channel challenges. I'm your host today, Karen Kurzweil, and I welcome you to contact myself or Janet after the webinar to request any additional information on our white papers, future webinars, software, and services. Before we get started here today, I'd like to just give a few instructions. We have muted all the participants, but we ask that you put your line on mute as well. And second, we have activated the chat, so please feel free to ask questions. We are going to wait until the end of the presentation to address those. For those of you who are on Twitter, feel free to follow the thread under #OmniChannel. We will be posting questions throughout the webinar and look forward to collecting your feedback. Our presenter today is Janet Dorncott. Janet has over 20 years of experience in information technology and co-owns Relational Solutions with Rob York. Relational Solutions has been implementing data warehouses and business intelligence solutions since 1996. Janet has been published in many articles and is a participating author for Shopper Technology Institute. She is a member of Retail Wire's Brain Trust and founder of the Demand Signal Repository Institute on LinkedIn. Relational Solutions has implemented solutions for over 200 companies, including Kraft, Hillshire, Chase, Chrysler, Timken, Xerox, Smuckers, Glaxo, and others. This is a half-hour presentation today, so with that, we'll get right to it. And I thank you, Janet, for joining us today.
Okay, thanks, Karen. It looks like we're having some problems here going through the different slides. So I think the second slide should be showing now. Karen's already gone through this, and I'm going to jump right here to the third slide here. So thanks again, Karen. We plan to cover a lot in this half-hour session. So first we'll define what we mean by omnichannel. I hear a lot of people refer to it the same as I hear them talking about big data. They kind of talk about the words interchangeably. So I want to take some time to explain the difference and the overlap to help clear up some of the confusion in that space. We'll also discuss how much more disruption there is to expect in this area. We see it as getting it's evolving very quickly out there. In addition, technology, because it's evolving fast and faster than most companies can keep up with today, we'll also describe some of the most common issues that we're seeing facing retailers, manufacturers, and consumers, because they're all dealing with a variety of different issues. And lastly, we'll discuss how to tame some of the chaos associated with the omni-channel. And we'll actually use data we'll show you how you can actually use data to propel your company into the next generation and hopefully propel you even ahead of your competition. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. The omni-channel. Let's face it, the concept of the omni-channel is so new, we can't even agree on how to spell it yet. For the record, to follow us on Twitter, it's #omnichannel without a hyphen. So is it one word or two? Does it have a hyphen? It does not have a hyphen. We see it spelled every which way, and we see it described many different ways as well. Some people like the term itself, and some don't like it. But like it or not, it's out there. It's here to stay for a while. It is different than big data. It's also different than multi-channel, and it's not just about buying online. So what is the omni-channel? The omni-channel refers to the complete customer experience today. It starts from the very earliest point when people are researching products. They could be just doing research on the internet. They could be doing research at the stores, in catalogs. They could be going to blog sites. They could be going to Consumer Report. But they're starting their process, their purchasing process, with actually researching. But obviously it doesn't end there. The omnichannel takes the customer through the entire buying experience. And hopefully that experience is pleasing and leads to a sale. But again, the omnichannel doesn't stop there either. It doesn't just end because they've purchased your product. A good omnichannel experience also takes the consumer through the delight process and continues to inform and attract that customer. So in today's market for consumer goods companies, your goal should be to inform consumers, attract consumers, convert them into customers, close the deal, and continue to make them happy so they will come back and they'll buy more from you. The problem is it's impossible to analyze that entire process for most companies. I would honestly venture to say for all companies today. One of our goals today will be to cover that issue. And I'll start with this I'll talk about that later in the presentation. But today, with online shopping and mobile shoppers, the whole shopper base growing on a regular basis, the omnichannel is in full swing. It includes both traditional and modern forms of purchase. Traditional forms of purchase, obviously, are generally referred to as in-store purchases, meaning a consumer buys a product at a brick-and-mortar store, but obviously shopping behavior has evolved from that as well. Consumers have a lot of options, and buying today is digital, it's mobile, it's in person, it's also heavily influenced by social. Consumers can shop at a store or on their phone. They can even shop on their phone while in a store or on a tablet or at a kiosk, even through gaming devices at home. Consumers today are doing things like scanning QR codes to learn more about products and researching opinions. They get ideas from Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook and sites like that. The omnichannel is a rapidly evolving experience, but it does involve the entire buying experience, and it is disruptive. It's getting more and more mature every day. So the omnichannel is obviously offers new and exciting possibilities for CPG manufacturers and retailers, as well as for consumers themselves. Online and mobile shopper base, the online and mobile shopper base has been growing every year. With 83% of consumers making purchases online, the omnichannel is definitely here to stay. SOMO-LO is a common acronym you'll hear today, and this chart explains why. SOMO-LO stands for social, mobile, and local. And in just a few letters, it describes various avenues of purchasing. This chart comes from Gartner, Apple, Google, and A16Z. And it shows how fast mobile is actually taking over. In the past 3 years, it has quickly surpassed PC purchases by orders of magnitude. 4 billion people are buying from their mobile devices every 2 years versus 1.6 billion a few years ago. This recent study by Ofcom shows kids would rather give up their television than their mobile devices or tablets. That's unheard of even just as of 5 years ago. But that's what their survey shows, and I believe it. I can remember when I was a kid going to Penny's with my mom. Penny's and Sears always had the best catalogs. They had them attached to the counter with basically with a wire, so you couldn't even take it home because it was so big and expensive to produce. That it was so big that if you actually wanted one, you had to purchase one of their catalogs just to take it home and go shopping. So the days of walking into a store, picking up an item off the rack and trying it on and checking out are pretty much gone. Obviously, people still do this, but chances are, even if they do walk into a store, you're doing it differently than you did 5 years ago. Some stores today offer virtual assistants in dressing rooms, so you can actually see what items look like without even trying it on. If you're like me, you're checking your coupon apps for, every time you walk into a store, or maybe you're getting them automatically too. That frequently happens with some of the retailers. One of the grocery stores I shop at, I basically create my list at home, and when I get there, the coupons are automatically generated for items that I typically buy, and my loyalty card actually then not only gives me the discounts on the coupons and the discounts I would typically get, it also shows me obviously my gas perks and how much I have that I'm going to get off my next gallon of tank of gas. How you interact with your customer really matters today, whether you're interacting with them online, in the stores, via mobile devices, or whatever. The customer wants relevant information at relevant times. And they don't want to be bombarded with coupons and spam, and that don't matter to them. They want relevant information. The information on this slide actually comes from McKinsey. In a survey they did with online shoppers, they asked why customers prefer to shop online. As you can see, they consider it a huge time savings. They also find it easier to compare prices. They feel they have more variety online, and my favorite is to avoid crowds, especially at Christmas time. But they also see it as a money saver. And in order to accommodate these shoppers, you need to focus on the full experience. These online customers need an easy and reliable payment process. So pay attention to the shopping process your customers are going through. The cost during checkout. I mean, what we typically see is customers have a lot of issues when they go through that checkout process. A lot of them get nervous about things. These things matter. They're all important to the customer. and it's one piece of a growing Omni experience. 45% of customers will actually abandon their online transaction and switch to voice if their questions or concerns are not addressed quickly. So if you have a chat room, utilize that. If you have customers complaining about the shipping process or not being able to enter the coupon code early enough to make sure that their coupon's being accepted, change those things, because otherwise they're going to log off. Forrester Research expects that spending on e-commerce platforms will reach $2.1 billion by 2019. That's probably a very conservative number. But the bottom line is that you need to make sure that you're accounting for these new forms of purchasing. I'm really amazed at the number of manufacturers and retailers that we go into that are not really taking the online shopping experience seriously. And these are companies that are quickly going down the tubes while their competitors who caught up on this years ago are mysteriously leapfrogging them. Branding today is real time. It's important to give them a good buying experience, but you also want to keep them happy. One lonely guy out in the middle of the desert could make your brand hurt terribly if they were upset enough. One bad tweet or post on Facebook can set off a firestorm for your company. So you need to keep track of these things and control what's going on out there. On top of that, interaction is a matter of record today. When you post, how you respond not only matters to customers and prospects, but it could matter down the road in cases of lawsuits even. People are sharing information, and depending on social influence that each of those individuals that they're connected with has. It could reach thousands of people at a first level if a highly connected person makes a tweet or a negative comment about your brand or product. If that tweet or post is shared even once, that negative experience just grows by orders of magnitude, especially if you have other people that are experiencing the same issues. It's going to turn into a firestorm for you. So you need to make sure that you're managing that. Because of the importance social media plays with brands, that there is a lot of confusion between the omnichannel and big data. The omnichannel experience does use and generate big data. However, big data is much more encompassing than that. And I have just a few slides to help explain the difference there. So obviously we discussed omnichannel and how now we're going to discuss how it's different than big data. Big data incorporates a much wider variety of data. All companies, not just CPG, deal with big data. Big data includes volume, variety, velocity, and veracity. I have 2 one-hour training sessions on big data, and there's obviously not enough time in this half hour to go into that on detail, but you're welcome to go on to our YouTube channel and listen to those presentations. I'm going to try and explain the difference at a very high level. This slide shows circles of information. The first oval shows examples of data that a company has internally, data designed to run their business, and those would include things like your manufacturing application, your financials, and so forth. The next oval represents applications designed for analysis, and this includes things like your enterprise data warehouse, your data marts, your CRM applications, any of your business intelligence solutions that you have available. The next evolution of big data was related really to outside data, partners sharing data and companies buying data. For CPG companies, retailers now typically share point of sale. Companies like Nielsen offer syndicated data, panel data, demographics, and so on. There's also a demand to integrate emerging market and loyalty data. And, again, I've done several presentations on that, and those are available on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in learning more about emerging market integration, we've got a 10-part blog as well as some videos available on our YouTube channel about that. But when technology companies refer to big data today, they're mainly talking about unstructured data, and that typically comes in from the internet. This includes social media chatter from Facebook, Google+, Twitter, and so on. They're common areas that people think of as big data would be those. But big data also includes data coming in from things like gaming devices, speech to text, video content, photos and location information, for example. That's actually a very good example. Every industry has a use for big data. And in retail and CPG, we do think of it as blogs and mobile payments and online ads and that sort of thing. But these things, along with e-commerce and retail sales, retail sales at the actual outlet stores are relevant to the OmniChannel. And the OmniChannel uses this information and even generates new data. But that's where some of the confusion is also coming in. The OmniChannel uses big data and it generates big data, but it's not synonymous with big data. One element of big data is volume. A manufacturer with 2,000 SKUs selling through 100 different retailers at over 100,000 stores is creating huge volumes of data. And adding to that is emerging market data, loyalty data, market basket, things like that for CPG. Those data volumes are huge. However, I hear some analysts refer to big data as a petabyte. Well, simply using the term petabyte to define big data is far too narrow of a definition. Volume varies by company. To one company, a terabyte could be big data. To the Department of Defense, a petabyte could be minimal. Using an arbitrary number to describe big data really only confuses the issue more. So I want to make sure we avoid using just petabyte or any data volume to describe what big data is. Big data is about volume, it includes volume, but it's also about variety, velocity, and veracity. Variety includes internal data residing in your internal databases like Access, Oracle, SAP, and so on. But you also have applications like your trade applications and planograms and CRMs and a whole slew of other applications. That's also internal variety. And variety includes data coming from third-party providers, like from the syndicated data providers and from retailers. It also includes data coming from social media sites and places like Amazon.com. All these sources are in different formats containing very different information, and this adds up to a lot of variety. So we've got volume, variety, and now velocity. Velocity refers to the timing of new data. ERP data is updated every millisecond at a large company. You have multiple people adding new information across the company every minute of the day. POS data, on the other hand, might just come in daily, weekly, or monthly, depending on the data source. Pricing information and zip code information might come in quarterly or annually. Quick stream analysis is happening constantly as our social comments and likes and tweets and retweets are going on. In fact, you probably see that going on right now if you're following the OmniChannel hashtag. I know Bree and Karen are responding to some things coming through there. And I like to add one more component to the concept of big data, and that's veracity or complexity. And veracity means that it's reliable, truthful information. But we talk about veracity and complexity together because in order to get that data in a true, reliable format, it's a very complicated process. Making all that data work together and align with common business rules is the most difficult task any company in our industry faces today. It is extremely complicated, and it's the reason so many people have different results for different reports and information that they're sharing and so forth. But because when data needs to be put in a usable format, there are many alignments and rules that need to be applied. And these rules and processes need to be written. They need to be written to extract the data, to load the data, to clean the data, to refine that data, to make those data sources align with your internal hierarchies. And all of that variety of data needs to be transformed into a common data type as well so that you can actually analyze that data. On top of that, there's even metadata, which is data about the data. So all of that information needs to be managed. Just the process alone of trying to align data and put it in a usable format becomes new data. And this is an area where Relational Solutions has focused our efforts since our inception back in 1996. We're highly experienced in the integration and alignment of new data sources, which is what makes us uniquely qualified to explain the evolution of this data and help companies make it all work together. We focus mainly on consumer goods, which makes us uniquely qualified for the OmniChannel. But big data, again, is part of every industry, not just CPG. This slide here shows a great example of how a hospital is using things like QR codes to send information to potential patients and even allow them to establish a place in their queue at their ER waiting room. For example, location information can be used by a CPG company to track shipments, but a logistics company would use location information as well. They would use it to manage deliveries, to reroute trucks, to understand where in the process those trucks are. Location information can be used by law enforcement to track and identify things like missing cars. It's used by the airline industries for air traffic control. It's used by meteorologists to monitor storms and do things like that. So we think of it a little too narrowly in the CPG industry as location information being used to maybe understand where products are being purchased or to even reroute inventory or to manage out of stock. But it's used by all sorts of industry. Clickstream analysis is another example. It's being used by virtually all industries to tell them where companies are going on or where people are going on their website. It's not just used by CPG and retailers to determine ad effectiveness, yet clickstream analysis does generate big data. That data is then used by all sorts of industries, including CPG, for their own analysis purposes. Internally, companies are also experiencing significant increases in data volume. In addition to transactional ERP applications and business intelligence systems, companies have internal sites that also answer questions and generate data. Requests from multiple departments come in multiple forms. They get information requests that come in through specialized software or emails even. Some even have collaborative software like Salesforce.com and Siebel that have their own chatter applications. These are all various sources with a variety of data elements that add more volume, some structured, some unstructured. Regardless, omnichannel and big data are obviously different. Omnichannel is a buying experience. Big data refers to data and information. It often supports the omnichannel, but it isn't the omnichannel. In most cases, retailers and CPG companies are playing catch-up, just trying to get their items noticed. Companies that understand the importance of the omnichannel are rapidly struggling to keep up with the changes and prepare for the future. But again, that's not so easy to do. So what's next in this disruptive world of the omnichannel? A lot. Every day there's a new story that seems to disrupt the industry. Just 2 weeks ago, this article came out explaining how Instagram is, hopefully that screen caught up, but this article explains how Instagram will be letting users click on pictures, and from those pictures they can select what they'd like to purchase. In this example, it's showing a picture of a ruler, some paint, and a mixing palette. In the future, you'll be able to click on those pictures and actually purchase those things. You can even go in, click on those pictures, and you'll be able to purchase all of those things at once. That's one example of disruption, but there's lots of new disruptions going on out there. I put a bunch of them here on this slide, but all of these things are helping the omnichannel evolve. We're seeing drones recently just got a new level of approval from the FAA just 2 days ago. They didn't give approvals to drones to deliver products door-to-door yet, but I have no doubt that's coming. Some estimates are that that's coming within 2 to 3 years, but that'll require a lot of approvals again. But Amazon is making a lot of investments in this space, in the drone space, just to make sure that that eventually does happen. They want to be able to deliver products to your home if you live within a certain vicinity of their distribution center, which would then allow you to actually buy and receive products within hours of each other. Retailers are also adding dark stores. That's another example of the evolution and new disruptions. But consumers can order products online, and a picker selects the goods that you've ordered. The consumer then goes to the warehouse and picks up what's been ordered online. These are called dark stores. GoPros are doing things like tracking your adventures. Tiny lapel cameras click every few seconds to order your daily, to record your daily activity. Things like Happy Spoons here. These Happy Spoons actually vibrate if they think you're eating too much or if you're eating too quickly. It's designed to help you lose weight. Medical devices and other devices are being used to feed information back and forth to each other. And it won't be long before the omnichannel leverages some of these new data sources. And in some cases, it already is. Other examples include Pinterest. They're adding a new Buy Now button. Stores like Marsh Supermarkets have developed a closed-loop iBeacon platform in all of its stores to engage with shoppers carrying a smartphone or Apple iWatch. Tesco in the UK is the first supermarket retailer to launch a basic version of a shopping app for Google's Glass eyewear. And Save Smart Supermarkets are increasing its options for mobile payments at checkouts with the debut of Apple Pay in its 217 stores. Companies need to prepare themselves for all of this new data, And that leads me to the issues that companies are facing related to the omni-channel. So omni-channel posing new problems for all CPG manufacturers, retailers, and customers. With all the different ways of purchasing, new issues are constantly coming up. Retailers are struggling with internal competition. We see that most frequently when talking with retailers. They struggle with their, their internal brick-and-mortar retail teams and their own internal e-commerce teams. Internal fights between the traditional retail teams and social media teams are common, and we're seeing it everywhere. Competition with other vendors is tough enough. So make sure you're not competing with yourselves internally. There has to be regular communication and cross-training between the two marketing and sales teams. The e-commerce team has a marketing and sales team, as does the retail team. So they should be working together for the better good of the company. If a retailer has a competitive online price, they can still lose to another online merchant who has better mobile app, a friendlier website, or better SEO, or faster online chat response. So that's another area where we see retailers facing significant issues with the omni-channel. Manufacturers toil with a new phenomenon called coupon stacking. Shoppers are using in-store coupons as well as manufacturers' coupons, and they're finding discounts on, end users will go on Groupon and Coupon Sherpa, and all sorts of other sites, including the retailers and manufacturers' own websites, and it's costing retailers and manufacturers millions of dollars every month because customers using discounts from multiple sources are eroding profits. There's even TV shows related to how you can do this. The consumer also is facing issues, though. Today, shoppers access reviews, shipping information, messaging, and more. And many retailers offer their own apps. Apps like Groupon and others that we've talked about, like Retail Me Not, offer coupons, and they can be accessed by simply asking their phone. The QR code scanners take shoppers to the right site for more information. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. The bottom line is the customer wants the best price, and they want a reassuring experience, and they don't really care who's getting credit for it. Consumers are facing frustrations associated with non-responsive websites, pop-ups, shopping carts that don't perform, coupons that don't take, mobile payments that leave them unsure if the purchase actually went through or not. They deal with multiple searches to find the best price, which is also frustrating, and the return process is also frustrating for users. So ultimately, these frustrations all turn into distrust of both the manufacturer and the e-tailer that they're purchasing products from. Customers want a good buying experience. If an online experience isn't good, they're going to stop. Like I mentioned earlier, 45% of consumers abandon their online transaction if they don't get their the results they're expecting in a short period of time, in just a few seconds. With all this interaction, how do you know your customers? Today, customers want to be catered to. They want to know that you know who they are, and marketing requires you to know your customer. Targeting consumers based on their persona and measuring the success of those promotions is extremely important. Yet, there's so much data. How do you actually handle that? How do you accomplish that? In addition, negative sentiment typically targets that product or brand, and therefore manufacturers need to manage and control consumer sentiment as well as the sales experience, and they need to understand how those things are interacting together. So what we recommend is that you create a customer journey map. And these are a few from Nuos and Forrester. Your company will have a completely different customer journey map, but we recommend you create two. Create one that explains what your customer is currently experiencing, and create another with what you think they should be experiencing. Define the goals of that journey. Define who's taking that journey. Admit issues occurring during that journey and the decision process all the way through to the end. And include others from your company. Have them take that journey and discuss each of the issues they experience. Then involve your customers and get their feedback. Find out what needs to change, highlight those areas that need improvement, and start tackling those. And during this course, you'll see information that's needed. Manufacturers have to tackle the continuing issues that they're saddled with related to the omni-channel, and the only way to do that is by integrating the necessary data sources. They need to identify the impact and tackle those problems with fact-based, true information. You need to take a fresh look at your existing architecture, review your current processes, and have experienced professionals help you put together a roadmap to solve both current issues associated with the OmniChannel, as well as those of the long term that you expect to face down the road. You have to account for things like those drones coming up down the line that might be delivering your product. So you need an architecture that's going to be flexible enough to do that. And what makes this omni-channel path so difficult? Well, this is what we're going to talk about here. This is a depiction of all of the different things that we see occurring within the omni-channel for CPG manufacturers. It's basically showing you all of these different sources that exist. You're trying to integrate different retailer data, syndicated data coming from companies like Nielsen, IRI, NPD, third-party data coming from Amazon. This data comes in from multiple retailers and other data sources with varying data elements. It often has missing data, recast data, UPC issues. Recast data is something that happens when, say, CVS sends you a file and finds out that 3 weeks earlier it sent a file that was missing 2 hours on Sunday. Well, they're going to send you recast data. So you need a system that's going to account for that recast data and handle it seamlessly without it taking somebody days to integrate and get right, and then you're not even sure if it's aligned correctly. The other issues are hierarchies, and the granularity of data coming in from all these different sources are different. The calendars are different. Your calendar is different than Walmart's calendar, and their calendar is different than CVS's calendar, and that calendar might be different than a standard Gregorian calendar that most people think of. So you have to make sure you account for the different calendars so you can report back to the retailers back on their terms, but you can also report to your management based on your own terms. All this data coming in is coming in different formats. You might get AS2 files or EDI 852 files or flat files coming from third-party data providers, but they're all different, and they all have different data elements. And you may have to buy that data. Maybe a retailer isn't just going to give it to you. Maybe they're going to tell you you have to buy it from Nielsen or IRI or other data sources. They might also tell you, you know what, in order for you to determine your effectiveness versus your competitors, you need to buy that data from them too. So figure out what data is important. All that data comes in at different times as well. So that whole idea of velocity and when that data comes in, it's different. You might be able to download it on an hourly basis from Walmart, but the Nielsen data might only come in monthly. You might get pricing information or new demographic information that comes in quarterly. But those are all that all makes it difficult to handle the different sources of data. We also have weekend dates, and those weekend dates vary from company to company. What we do is we recommend streamlining that integration process, and we pull that data together into a single source of information where you can easily report off that information. If you don't have that information in an easy-to-use format, there's obviously some degree of risk involved in integrating or making decisions based on those different data sources. So we want to make sure that we have access to that information faster, that it's consistent and reliable information. Therefore, we're reducing risk, increasing employee productivity, and providing additional information that we never had access to in the past. So in order to understand your customer, you need to be able to access, analyze, and act on that information. And the only way to do that is to listen, engage, and be able to make offers to them. So we want to make sure that we understand who our customer is. This is one quick report. I know we're running short on time. To give you an example of how you should understand what your social reputation is, this is a gender report that's showing how different genders feel about our particular brand. We also need to understand where that sentiment is coming from. If that sentiment is coming from a certain, geographic location, and if that sentiment is having any impact on sales. You also need to know where that, in addition to where that sentiment is coming from, you want to know if that sentiment is relevant to the different promotions that may have been running as well. We've got a whole slew of different reports that we can show to you. Unfortunately, there's not enough time in this today. We'll take just a couple more minutes. I know we're running a little late, but I want to, at this point, turn it back over to Karen so that we can address some of the questions that came in. But I also want to mention that we've got years of experience with this integration process in creating insights for those customers. So we've got those reports that we can share with you after the fact.
Thanks, Janet. We did get a couple questions here that I thought we'll try to sneak in here. Our first one is that we are struggling with our e-commerce and retail groups. It's harder to even know where we are out of stock on our shelves. We want to integrate e-commerce sales with retail sales. Where do you recommend we start?
So basically, if you're having issues with out of stock, as are most CPG companies still, strangely enough, we do want to start with integrating the retailer data. And we can, at a high level, integrate that e-commerce data with it so you can compare and you can see what percentage of your sales are coming from where. But we want to start with the out-of-stock issues that could be costing your company millions or billions of dollars.
We also have a question here. They want to know if we just want to understand what is selling on our e-commerce site versus Amazon, where do we go?
Again, we would take extracts from your e-commerce site. We would also ask Amazon to provide a data file, and we would integrate those two into a format that we could look at that at a very high-level top line, and we could also at some point start integrating other data sources to allow you to drill into more detail.
One last one here is we get retail sales from syndicated data providers, but it doesn't align with our hierarchies and weekend dates. Is that something you've dealt with before?
Yes, it's something we deal with everywhere. It's not a single customer has not experienced that. So we would probably want to address that offline and discuss that in more detail with you.
Okay, we do have several more questions, but since we are out of time, we'll follow up with those individuals separately. We thank you for posing those, and I would like to thank all of you again for joining us today. We invite you to follow our Relational Solutions training blog by going to our website at relationalsolutions.com. We ask that you follow Relational Solutions, Janet, Bree, and myself on Twitter and LinkedIn. I also suggest you join the Demand Signal Repository Institute on LinkedIn, where you can see more training videos on our Relational Solutions YouTube channel. Please contact us if we can help you with any of your other omni-channel issues. We thank you again.